We're so glad you're here.
We believe in bringing in experts to inspire and to educate women so that they can live empowered, fulfilled, and successful lives.
When women support women, we change the world. Here we go.
You're going to love this program.
Hi, Barbara. How's it going?
Really well. How about yourself, Nance?
I'm doing great, thank you. Who are we welcoming on the Recharge today?
Oh, I can't wait. You're going to love this guest. First, she is an award-winning author, journalist, editor, and keynote speaker. She's an emerita faculty member of journalism at Northwestern University, where she taught 18 years. And she's also an award-winning author of 6 nonfiction books and anticipates her 7th being released next year. She's a sought-after public speaker, delivering more than 200 keynotes across the country, and has also graced the TED stage. She's led initiatives at top universities like Stanford, Princeton, Brown, Northwestern, and Cambridge, and at dozens of organizations globally, including the Center for Global Solutions. Our guest is Michele Weldon. Michele, welcome to the Recharge.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hi.
Hi, we're really excited too, Michele. I want to tell a little bit more about you, though, to Nancy and to our audience, especially your current work. You are also a senior leader with the Op-Ed Project, and that's been since 2011, working with many different organizations across the country to train underrepresented experts, especially women, to take thought leadership positions in their fields. The belief, I love this, of the Op-Ed Project, and one that Michele fosters, is that the best ideas, regardless of where they come from, should have a chance to be heard and to change the world. There are so many dimensions of Michele's personal and professional life that I respect, but I want to call out a few that really stand out to me. One is, Michele, your willingness to be vulnerable as a writer and just speak your truth. Also, your ability to engage and inspire your audience as a keynote speaker. And then really as your generosity in using your talents as a writer, editor, journalist to train and coach others to find their voice and produce their best work. So thank you for all that.
Thank you for that great introduction. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's get started. I know when we had some initial conversations, we mentioned that our theme this year is really designing and living your brilliant life. And so tell us a little bit about your journey. What's been your path to do just that? And also what you've decided to shine a light on for yourself and others.
Well, thanks for that. Yeah, I've had a career over the past 43 years, mostly in journalism, but now it has a larger umbrella in storytelling and truth telling. I spent the first 10 years of my career after getting a master's at Northwestern in journalism in newsrooms, in magazines and newspapers in Chicago and in Dallas, Texas. And then I transitioned into academic life. I was a professor at Northwestern teaching journalism on the undergraduate and graduate levels for 18 years, while also writing books and committing journalism and being a contributing columnist at the Chicago Tribune for 15 years. There's been a lot of overlap. And then as you mentioned, since 2011, I've been with the Op-Ed Project. And also in this part of my career, I'm also editorial director at Take the Lead, a nonprofit for women's leadership. And I'm continuing to write books and also to do my own commentary. So it has morphed into 3 acts. I don't know how graceful the transformation has been, but there definitely is an arc to this. And I'm finding this part of my career exceptionally fulfilling and really rewarding for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned and who I get to work with and the mission that I purport to fulfill.
And so how did you really lock in as a writer to the power of storytelling? And also,
Mm.
what's the inspiration to help others tell their stories?
So I have a really, really corny story about how I got into storytelling. I had my own newspaper when I was 10. It was called the it was called the Juvenile Journal. And
That's
and it was
great.
a typed monthly newsletter that I typed, and I had a hectograph machine that my father had bought for me. And that was, I don't know if you could recall, this was pre Xerox. It involved gel and carbon paper and blue ink. And I had about 50 subscribers for 50 cents a year. And I
Oh,
wrote about my family, my neighborhood, my school, what was happening. I illustrated it, and I had a paywall, and my father mailed out the subscriptions each month. And uh, about a year or so later, I told him how proud I was of myself. And he said, "Well, actually, you're not doing so great. You have never paid me for postage." So, so I thought I will stick to the stories. Instead of babysitting as a teenager, I wrote for the local paper. I was paid $25 an article, which was a huge amount of money for a 13-year-old. And then I went to journalism school and undergrad and grad at Northwestern. And while I was there as an editor at the university paper, and also freelanced for major publications, and just loved that work. And, the media landscape has changed
Mm.
drastically,
Mhm.
since the Juvenile Journal. But
yeah.
it's really a vibrant, exciting place to work and to tell stories across all platforms. And I just love what I do and the chances that I'm given every day to do it.
So
So
how do you feel about social media with the opportunity to communicate more openly, but all of the curation and over editing that seems to take place and lack of truth telling, which is important to you? How do you feel about that and reconcile some of those
Right. Well,
differences?
the first thing is that it's a dangerous place for women, and particularly women journalists. There was a Pew Research Center report a few years ago that 70% of the trolling is on women, and most of that is on women of color. And there
Mm.
was just, I mean, the Amber Heard example of how brutally she was trolled and threatened, and there is a lot of trolling and threatening coming from the January 6th hearings, particularly towards women who are testifying. But there is a part of social media that is enormously purposeful and helpful, and a great resource for you can be anywhere and connect to anyone in the world. And it matters who you connect to. Like, I don't follow, or I am not followed by any of those celebrity stars who take a lot of oxygen out of social media. I mean, I follow like the World Economic Forum and
Mhm.
the UN, and BBC and CNN, and a lot of independent journalists and a lot of universities and foundations. And how fast I can get information is astounding compared to, say, the beginning of my career, when you had to wait to get things in the mail or wait for someone to return your call to get information. It just is really a lively, vibrant place. And I don't engage in any of that cruelty or negativity. And when I get trolled, which is often when I write about issues of
Mhm.
gender and equity, I report them. And if they're
Right.
silly enough to say where they work in their Twitter profile, I report them to their bosses, and I demand apologies. So, yeah. So there
Oh,
is that
great.
negative side, and there is a lot of disinformation, but it does matter who you follow. And that doesn't matter as much as who follows you, because you can control that and block people. But I think social media is a great place to get information from every corner of the world. So I would
Yeah.
argue for it rather than against it.
And it's interesting, Michelle. What I hear you saying is that the whole storytelling and writing has been part of your DNA from almost infancy, 10 years old,
Right.
and which is just so inspiring. And I'm curious about what inspires you to push the boundaries and be more of who you can be and to serve. You talk a lot about the importance of truth and telling the truth in storytelling and not over editing it so that it's less truthful. What inspires you to push those boundaries?
Well, I mean, in my own experience, I've written two memoirs. The first memoir I wrote was called I Closed My Eyes. It came out in 1999. And that was an extreme act of bravery for me because I wrote about being married to a man who was physically violent. And I had had a decent career until that point for newspapers and magazines, and had a recognizable byline. And a former friend who was a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist said, "Do not write that book. You will have victim on your name tag for the rest of your life." And I did not listen to her. Instead, that book opened up the possibility for me of what telling the truth can do, not just for you or for your career, but to anyone who listens to
Right.
the power of your voice. And then
Mhm.
I learned from my students, I learned from people I mentor and people I coach, that when you tell the truth, and in an artful way, you don't stand on top of a mountain screaming it, or using vulgar language or be vengeful about it. But when you thoughtfully produce an artful piece of truth, then that resonates with people, and it
Right.
can save lives, actually. And I'm all for that. And I'm so lucky to have the work that I do be about encouraging other people to tell their truth and to see the transformation that happens to them, not just personally, not like, gee, I had a byline, but it literally
Right.
changes them because it gives them the power of their own voice, and to really acknowledge what telling the truth, and not in a way that is hurtful to other people, but a way that
Hmm.
is healing to
Hmm.
yourself.
Right.
Because there is a catharsis to it, but there is also an otherness to it. There's also like an altruistic part of telling the truth when you realize it is not just about you; it is about other people. So
It can often be serving other people.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Right. So tell us a little more about that, especially your work um, to encourage others, especially women, to have more courage. I mean, it is cathartic, it is healing, it's supportive of others and yourself, but it's, I presume it can be a little tough. I mean, how do you help people step into that power and step and be courageous?
Well, first of all, it is tough, and you can't be reckless about it. And I have to acknowledge, the legal concerns. You
Mm.
can't
Hmm.
call someone a name. You can't make claims that you can't back up. You have to make sure that it is driven by your own truth and story, and not to be punishing, or not to,
Hmm.
necessarily call out someone else, but to be true to the issue and to the larger scenario of what you're writing about and talking about. And there's a whole field of study that's 30 years old, of narrative therapy, about how actually articulating the truth, and it could even be just to yourself. I mean, you could write it in a journal and feel the same kind of healing. It of course won't have the wide reach or impact on others, but it can be as healing. And I think it's a way of controlling your own story and controlling what you had no control over, and to take that back. And that is powerful. And that
Hmm.
works in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be a memoir about an unfortunate and hurtful part of your life. It could be a discussion with your team leaders at work about how to handle a problem and what you have done and what has happened to you. But to be vulnerable and
Hmm.
authentic, is powerful, not just for you, but for those around you and those who see that as a model. And to be a model for truth and truth telling is really important.
So share an example of maybe one of your fellows or someone you've coached or helped who really was able to make some, incredible progress to tell their story.
Oh, sure. I mean, there are so many people who went on who wrote, one essay that turned into a book that turned into, a whole different career. Inger Burnett Ziegler is one of them. She's a psychologist at Northwestern, and she was in the Op-Ed Project Public Voices Fellowship probably about 5-6 years ago. And she wrote an op-ed about the difficulties, mental health difficulties that Black women have. And Black women are always told that you're strong, you can do it. And she wrote an op-ed that I helped her get published in the New York Times. And then an agent contacted her. And then there was a publisher contacted her. I remember after an agent contacted her and said, "I'd like to talk to you about a book." She emailed me and said, "What should I do?" I like, call them back. So from that, I mean, she worked really hard and wrote the best-selling book, Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen, the mental health challenges of Black women in America. So that book completely changed her life. And that happens a lot. And not that specific scenario, but people who dare to get the truth out there, then it morphs into other things and how they are seen, how they are. I remember another fellow wrote a very personal essay about a miscarriage she had that she told no one at work, and she just took days off, did not. And then she wrote about it, and then she has a whole speaking career connected to that. And so it can turn, I mean, these examples are unfortunately about negative trauma or events, but it can also be uncovering the truth about research you have or things you have learned and tactics and strategies you have that can change.
Wonderful.
And it's interesting because, as I think about what you're saying, it also, the impact that you're having on the lives of, these people and the impact that they're having in the world by talking about some really difficult topics, it almost opens up others and gives them permission, not that anybody needs it, but permission to talk about it. I mean, because they're so relatable.
That's right. I remember, and this is kind of funny. I remember I was on Oprah for my first book, and like everybody saw that back then. That was in 2002, and a student came up to me in the hallway and said, "Professor Weldon, I had no idea you had a past." And it was like, oh, honey, everybody has a past, but it was just. It was funny because she just could not see me as a real person.
Yeah.
And from then I got hundreds of calls and contacts and visits to my office from students who would say, "I want to talk to you about something," and it isn't about class. So,
Right.
I became a connection for a number of them, and that I was really proud of, and still am, and still have that connection to people who encounter the book in some way.
And that's fulfilling.
Yeah,
That's
that's
so
wonderful.
fulfilling, I would imagine.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of your biggest challenges, Michele?
As I take a deep breath and sigh. The workplace has completely changed since,
Sure.
February 2020, and my work life has completely changed. And not necessarily the work I do, but the scenario and the logistics of doing it. I was traveling 1 to 4 times a month for the Op-Ed Project, lucky to travel internationally for that across the US and Canada and Europe, and even had the honor to travel to Africa and train some people there. So that all stopped. And then it morphed into other kinds of, I mean, the op-ed project is still going extremely well, but it's all virtual. So the time that, all the travel and all that took is now all online. And, there's drawbacks to that as well. That could be more difficult in connecting with people. I mean, we have 8-hour days of Zoom training, which can be exhausting.
Draining.
And, other work has emerged from that. So I'm probably have like a 30% increase in work, which is a real challenge, but a great challenge. So, but I guess that's a good problem to have, right? That you have a lot to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. But how do you, we have this big focus in the Women's Forum on a few different times. We've talked about the importance of setting boundaries. And, how do you manage that? You have infinite work and finite resource.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you say that, because boundaries, some people do not respect boundaries. So I say, I'm available 7 to 6 by email and 5 days a week. And some people are, I will get urgent calls to action by email at 11, 12 at night. And it's like, no, I'm not answering you. And I don't say, no, I'm not answering you. I just don't answer.
You don't answer. Right. Well,
and then I take Saturday off completely. I don't even look at my emails on Saturday. I do work on Sundays, which I guess now is no longer a secret, but not the entire day. But I have to catch up and get ready for Monday. But I don't I don't answer emails then. I just get ready for the next day. But getting people to really respect your boundaries is difficult. They say, no, just will take a second. It's like, no, it's not going to take a second. You're asking me a lot. And then people, I have probably been lucky to train thousands. I'd have to count, but a few thousand people through the op-ed project all over the world. And then when the fellowship ends and my mentorship contract with them ends, for years, they asked me things. It was like, oh, can you take a look at this? It's like, no, I can't. No, I cannot take a look at this.
Right.
And, the thing about being generous with your time while you're connected with them, people think that generosity extends ad infinitum. So that I find is difficult.
Yeah, that must be, especially when you come from a place of generosity, right? I mean, it's.
I was just going to say that.
But again, that's that healthy boundary, right? You have so many talents, Michele. So, but what would you describe as your superpower?
I think telling the truth in a way that resonates, and that. It's not like regurgitating your grocery list. I mean, that's true, but that's not truth. When you are, in a way that is that can resonate and that is authentic and I said artful already, but I mean that there's artistry to storytelling, and when you tell the truth in a way that will connect to people. I really work on that, and hopefully that is a superpower, because that's my intention, and that's what I love to do.
Well, I really was struck when we talked initially about a statement you made, and in this regard, it was about your discernment of what truth needs to be told.
That's right. Because not everybody needs to know everything. And I think what I told you was, I definitely, while my mother was alive, there are definitely things I did not write about. And someone who writes personal essays, at that time I was writing a column weekly. It's like, oh, what do I not want my mom to know? And then, right? It's like there's a whole side there.
Right.
And then now that I have 3 grown sons at 33, 31, and 28, it's like, what do I now want my sons to know? So I have private sides that I don't write about.
That
So
you
that would
protect.
disturb
Yeah.
that I protect, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
And that really
absolutely.
nobody's business, right?
That's
And
Particularly
then,
great.
my sons.
right, right. In line with superpower, if you ran the world, what's the first change that you would make?
Other than clean out Congress, um, is for young people to realize the power of their voice and to realize the power of one person to change something important.
Hmm.
So I think that because I don't think, I think, it sounds so old person to say the young people today, but I think they have access, unlike any other generation before, to enormous audiences. But
Yeah.
to spend that energy on dance moves, and sure that's fun, but to put all that time and energy into TikToking things, it's like, wow, you could
Yeah.
really change your neighborhood. You could really change your family. You could do this. I mean, not that I want to be didactic about what they intend, but I think for everyone to realize the power they have to make a difference and something super important. That's what I
Hmm.
would love people to know.
Yeah, it's almost,
And
I really agree. I think it's almost the responsibility of the choices you make and some of the ramifications or unintended consequences that can also come, not just the positive, but some of that responsibility you bring.
That's right. That's right.
I think that there's responsibility for our generation to encourage and support them in doing that.
That's right.
Um, and
That's a good point,
so,
Nance.
so I'm curious, Michele, that other than not answering emails after 7 and not on Saturdays, how do you find time for yourself and everything that you have going on? And what aside from your work brings you joy?
So, a couple of things. I have resurrected my artistic endeavors after a long period of rest, that raising, my sons alone and all that involved in, a really busy career, which I'm still doing, but I no longer have to do as much laundry or make as many meals. So I paint and I sketch and I spend my Saturdays doing that. Like tomorrow,
Nice.
I'm going with a close friend to the Morton Arboretum, and we're bringing our easels and our oil paints, and we're gonna stay as long as we
Nice.
can and
Oh,
and,
nice.
and paint and
It's a beautiful venue there. Yeah.
right. So in the
Mhm.
summers we do plein air, and in the rest of the year we go to places indoors or each other's houses and sketch and paint. And I find that really rejuvenating because
Mm,
I don't think about anything more challenging than how do I find the right blue, right? And is the light, did I accurately capture the light there? And how do I do that? And really think about, just line and composition and color and all of that, and how to express something. It's really relaxing and
yeah,
fulfilling. And I love Saturdays. So that's what I do on
Nice.
Saturdays. Yeah.
that sounds lovely.
That's
And
wonderful. You know,
I was just going to ask, do you share your artwork with the world, or is that more something that you keep personally?
I give some things away, and I have them, framed all over my house, and I share them on social media. And
That's great.
people have asked to buy them. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't even know. I don't even know what I would know. So yeah, I mean, I share them in a very small way.
There's another
I
nice.
career there, I think.
Right. I haven't been asked to have an exhibition at a museum yet. So no.
Well, you should enter something at the Oak Park Art League. They do a lot of
I
great
know that.
programming. Yeah.
I know that. Yeah, I should.
So
Um, oh,
I
sorry.
guess we're
Nancy,
gonna.
go
I'm
ahead.
just
There's a
Yeah, I'm just
delay
kind of
here.
thinking through the flow of the discussion, and I think I want to pivot a little bit, Michele, if that's okay. Um, we want to tie this into the work that we do here at Capstrat, and we're always curious to talk to our guests about how they've been intentional financially throughout their lifetime. How have you been intentional in building and managing your financial, resources during your life so that you can care for yourself and those you love?
So I'm looking to be a homeowner, and I live in River Forest in a 90-year-old house that has escalated in value, of course, in the last, I've lived here 25 years, and it's greatly escalated in value, a little bit down lately, but I have a great mortgage rate and not a super high mortgage I owe. So that is wonderful. I consider this a huge part of my investment portfolio. And then,
Hmm.
18 years at Northwestern, I have a TIAA CREF account that my son Colin helps me manage and figure out and move things around. And I'm trying to reduce costs right now. I'm eager to turn 65 and get on Medicare because my insurance costs are enormous,
Right.
because I'm an independent contractor, and I'm 64 years old. So I'm quite cautious about costs. And the lucky thing for me and what I do is that I don't work for one entity that has
Right,
retirement
right.
rules. And there are a
Right.
lot of people in the organizations that I work for that are way older than I am, and they're not being asked to leave, and there isn't any mandatory retirement. So I feel that as long as I want to keep working at this pace, I will be able to. And I feel like with what I have laid out for myself, I feel like I will be okay. So I hope that's true. And I'm working
Absolutely.
towards that and getting
You know,
good
it's
advice.
good. That's important. Uh, Nancy and I have been focused a lot on the book from strength to
Strength.
strength. I don't know
Mhm.
if you've uh, read that.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it speaks to the strength. Your type of work, you just get better and stronger at it, right? Because you bring all those experiences that you've had, and you're able to even help others with more of those experiences, and really have purposeful work where you coach and guide others. I think it really speaks to this second half of career life for
Right.
people. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm really lucky to do this. I mean, I don't have work that I dread. I mean, there are some parts that I'm not thrilled. I mean, that aren't not wonderful, like invoices. I really, yeah, but invoices lead to getting paid and lead
Right.
to saving money and all the other things and buying cars and all that. So I feel that the work that I do, I really love it, and it lifts me up.
Mm.
Sometimes it makes me like it's irrational how happy it makes me. So if I'll help someone get published, somewhere marvelous, the New York Times or the Washington Post or one of those places, the USA Today, it's just like, oh, I know their life will change from that, and it makes me so happy because
That's
it would not
fantastic.
have happened without my intervention. I mean, it just would not have, because they
Hmm.
didn't have the access, and they didn't have the right process. They didn't know the right process. So that really makes me happy.
Yeah, that must be so fulfilling. That's wonderful. So Michele, what's next for you?
So you talked about it at the top. I have a book that's coming out in October 2023 called The Time We Have. They cut out In the Time We Have, Essays on Pandemic Living. It
Oh,
was due June 1. I get edits back probably September. Those edits are all due probably January 1. So I'll be working on that. That's next. And I'm looking to get back to live storytelling because that was eliminated in the pandemic, and it's just not really fun to do live storytelling on
right.
Zoom. It's you can't hear the reaction. So I do a bit of that, and I'm looking to do more of that, and also to get in-person keynotes back, because
Yeah.
that hasn't happened. I did one or two last year, and then I have some more coming up this year. So that's back. So that's what's next.
Good. Good. Well,
That's
we
great.
are so appreciative, first of all, of the work that you do, how you share your talents with the world, and getting more truth being told and helping more people have a stage to tell their truth at diverse groups of voices. So thank you for all of that. We were so appreciative.
Oh, thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Nancy. This was super fun. Thank you. Really love talking with you.